Okay, so welcome to everybody today. We have with us today we have Kevin from Third Barrel in Ireland. We have Javier from Brew and Roll in Spain, and we have Kjetil from both Axiom and Solo. He's having a little bit of trouble, technical difficulty, so we're going to try and get him on at the same time. So bear with us while we're trying technical issues at the same time as trying to drink beer and talk about beer and all that sort of mad stuff, and we'll get there eventually. So we have basically, like I said, we have some people around to get a good look at. I'm getting messages here from Kjetil, so give me 1 second. Okay, Kjetil's trying to get another browser, and he'll join us in a few minutes. So so we have, like I said, it turned a little bit chaotic this week because beers seem to get lost on their travels around Europe, and everybody got some beer, but nobody got all the beer, and the people who have the beer drank it all. So it's going to be interesting. But we have a couple of interesting people this week, obviously. Kevin, you've been around since 2003, 2004?
No, 2012. I've been around since 1981, really. But no, we lost our first beer in 2013.
Oh, 2013. Okay, that's
yeah.
Not by a decade, but sure, what's a decade between friends?
A decade between friends, yeah.
How about you, Javier? When did you start Brew and Roll?
I can hear you right now.
Okay, we can see your eyes.
Beautiful eyes.
I think it works.
Yeah. So when did you start Brew and Roll?
We started in 2015. No, 15.
Okay, so you're both around the same time. It's about 6-ish.
Yeah, like 6 years ago.
Okay. So Javier Kjetil would be the one who's been here the longest. He started, I think that's where I got confused. He's 2004. He started in Norway. So I have a couple of questions. Like I said, the things thrown me out here a little bit, but so what's the like, since you started, what have you noticed about the beer scenes? Like, what kind of beers are you brewing now? Is it anything different than you were brewing when you started?
Yeah, of course. I've always liked traditional styles.
Okay.
So in the beginning, we started with many traditional styles and just a few IPAs. And then right now, everybody wants fucking IPAs. That's all we can brew. No, not. It's not the only thing we brew, but we still keep on with the traditional styles because I like very much, and I think for the beginners, for people who doesn't know craft beer,
yeah,
it's easier starting with that kind of beers and not going direct to a strong IPA or NEIPAs or hazy IPA or triple IPA. So we brew almost every style, but it's true that people want hazy IPAs, NEIPAs, the name you wanna put in that kind of beer.
Right. Just pull everybody up here. Sorry, I just noticed. And is that the same, Kev, for you? You've is it?
Yeah. So when we started in 2013, I suppose there was Ireland's craft beer scene was a bit different from where it is now. So most breweries would have had a core range of a hoppy beer, be it an IPA or a pale ale, a red ale, and a stout or a lager. And that's what we started. We started with a clean session IPA, which we still brew today. But yeah, in the last 4 or 5 years now, it's been dominated by hazy IPAs, New England IPAs, all that kind of stuff. And, we try and brew a broad range of beers. We have 3 brands, so it gives us a good platform to brew a lot of different beer styles. But, the only thing that people are just hop crazy at the minute. Right. We could brew a New England style IPA and it will sell out in absolutely no time. But then if we go and try and brew something traditional like a Goza or a lager or something like that, it's a harder sell. Right. People are just hop crazy. Now I don't mind it because I'm addicted to hops myself. So it suits us for what we like doing. But it's just the world has gone IPA crazy at the minute, and I don't see it changing for a while, to be honest.
Right, that's what I was going to ask, because I don't know, maybe it's just because I've started paying more interest, but like I keep seeing a lot more interest in saisons and lambics and stuff like that coming in. But I was wondering whether that's kind of is that still very, very minority?
Yeah. It's a style that I really like, lambics and so on. The problem is that you can't brew normal beers and lambic in the same place, so we have to choose for the moment.
But
I like very much, and where I live in Pamplona, near Pamplona, there's a lot of wine as well. So there's a big tradition with the barrels and natural wines, and I think it's very interesting with lambics and saison, that kind of beers. It's something that I like very much, but for the moment we can't go in that area. I don't want to have problems with the rest of my beers.
Yeah.
But even like I said, the interest, like I just keep hearing saisons are becoming, you know, bigger and bigger. But what you're saying is that it's not really. It's still IPAs and hazy IPAs, particularly.
Yeah. For us, it's like Kevin said before. If you brew an hazy IPA, you know it's gonna be sold in 2 weeks, and with a traditional style, you will have to put 3 months looking for clients, and it's a shame, but it's how it's working right now.
Yeah. But it's just, I think it's been led by consumers, because even before, I suppose, the way old IPAs were, you know, clean IPAs, the kind of West Coast style became big around kind of, coming out of probably the mid 2000s onwards. The bolder the beer, the more IBUs you're putting into it, the more bitter, the more harsh. And it started alienating people a little bit, whereas the people who weren't into craft beer would drink one of these old school IPAs and automatically they'd be like, this is too bitter for me. Where now with this, the kind of the change to the kind of the softer IPAs, the New England style IPAs, they're a lot more accessible to people. So people who don't drink craft beer could drink a little hazy pale ale and go, oh, wow, you know, this is nice and fruity. It's easy drinking. It's this and that. And that's why I think it's become so big, because obviously it's loaded with hops, so all the craft beer heads love it. But it's also it's very much more accessible to the people who weren't into craft beer previously. So there's so many more people coming into craft beer now. They're all going straight in onto hazy IPAs and hazy pale ales, and it just drives that and keeps on driving them. Like, given that craft beer only accounts for probably 5% of beer drinkers in, you know, most of our countries, there's a lot more people to come into it, which means I don't see this not fad, this kind of thing of hazy IPAs going away anytime soon.
No, it's true that with that kind of beers, there's many people taking interest in craft beer. So really, I think it's helping people to get on in the craft beer, and this is clients for us. So it's it's nice. But I hope that at least 10% or 50% of people who's drinking hazy IPAs is going to try other styles. And open the mind, not just for thumos. You know, the thumos is juice.
It's what?
Fruit.
All right.
It's like there's no bitterness.
Yeah.
It's almost not a beer. But I mean, if people is interested in the craft beer because of that kind of beers, let's go.
Yeah. That's it.
It's our work to try to put them in other styles so they can try different things. And I don't know. Everybody who is interested in craft beer is okay for me.
Yeah,
he can drink what he wants.
Exactly. That's the way we look at it as well. You know, we're just a brewery. We all we can do is brew our own beers. We can't dictate how people spend their money. You know, and if they want to spend money on hazy IPAs or they want to spend money on sours, that's them. You know, all we can do is try to make sure we have a beer style brew that they want to buy, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's easy.
And Just before we started there, Kevin and myself were saying we both tried some of the stouts. Obviously, he didn't try yours last night because yours hasn't arrived, but I tried it, and it was fantastic stout. What I was saying last week, I don't know if Kevin agrees with me, but like, to me, imperial stouts are almost a separate category. You mentioned stout to me being from Ireland. It's just, lighter Guinness style, and the other ones are kind of a different beer.
Yeah, that's it. But the weird thing about Ireland is that from outside, people think Ireland is, the home of the stout, because of the big brands that we have. But in actuality, it's very hard for a brewery in Ireland to brew a stout, because stout drinkers tend to be Guinness drinkers, and they tend not to move away from Guinness. So if we were to brew a 4.5% stout in Ireland, it'll be a lot harder to sell than it's brewing any other style. It's pretty locked up in Ireland. So outside of Ireland, people think, yeah, Ireland's stout country. Everybody, all the brewers. Nobody brews. No, not many breweries brew run-of-the-mill standard stouts in Ireland because of Guinness. So that's why most breweries will brew a big imperial stout, because that's, as you said, nearly a separate style to a stout. Once the ABV goes over 7%, it should be classed as a proper imperial stout and put into its own little basket.
Yeah. And what about in Spain? I mean, I wouldn't have thought Spain as being a big stout country.
Sorry?
I wouldn't have thought kind of up where you are as a big stout country. Is there a big demand for it?
You tell me if in Spain people is liking in stouts, imperial stouts.
Yeah, do they?
In Spain, if you want, when you're talking about the stout, you have to talk always imperial stout or Russian imperial stout. There's nobody who drinks a stout with 5 degrees in alcohol.
Okay.
Everybody wants 10, 11, 12. I can't understand why, because I really like stouts with 4 degrees, 5 degrees that you can drink easily. But here, it doesn't work. Everybody wants imperial stout, 10 degrees. And there's people who drinks. Of course, you can't have 6 pints. Well, you can have 6 pints, but it's going to be bad. So what you will see, Brian, you will receive our beers.
Yep. I had your stout last night.
Yeah, Lega Belza, and that one is strong imperial stout.
Yeah.
And there's also a barley wine, Paco Fighter. I hope you will like, Kevin, when you will receive them.
Yeah, Monday.
And,
I'll leave the car at home Monday morning so I can enjoy them in the brewery Monday afternoon.
He was flying this morning. I think he has had. It's going to be. It's late. I think. I don't know, because he was flying in the morning. Okay. But yes, in Spain about the stouts, we have to talk always from 10 degrees upstairs, not lower than that.
And is that the same for all the beers? I'm trying to take a look here. You have even the IPAs are like, you're talking at 7%, 8%. You don't do anything lower.
I like beers in 4, 5 degrees. But here, everybody wants IPA minimum 6 degrees.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I don't know. People is borracho. How you say? Alcoholics. They want high degrees.
Yeah. We noticed that as well. What IPAs, the sweet spot is between 6 and 7%. I think you get the best IPAs flavor-wise from that, but it's a lot easier to sell as well. Not too strong, not too weak. People, you can feel the bite. It's, I think, anyway, 6 to 7% is perfect for IPAs, in our opinion, anyway.
Okay. See, 6, 7, it's okay for me. But I also like session IPAs with 4 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
That you can drink all day long. Yeah, after it's not so easy having a good session IPA. You have to be more careful to have somebody that can hold the bitterness and the hops. But
That's it.
there's a kind of beer that I would like drinking more so that I can find more, but I can't.
I'll give you some cans to Eker on Monday to bring home. One of our permanent beers called Boom is actually a session IPA. We've been making it since 2013, and it's a Mosaic session IPA. It's 4.5%. But I'll give you some cans to your colleague on Monday to bring home to you to enjoy.
We have another just like yours. Ours is called Cancun.
Okay.
It's a session IPA Mosaic. How you say only Mosaic? I mean,
yeah,
and 4.5% as well.
Excellent.
It's the same beer.
Same beer.
Yeah, because someone was saying that, I think Ronan from Blacks was saying that the last time he was on, that there is more of a trend towards, at least in Ireland, for people to be looking for lighter beers for at least for midweek. Is that you're not seeing that?
I don't know. I think the trend is now, especially in Ireland, is just people looking for good beers. You know, I haven't seen any marked increase in our lower ABVs overselling their higher ABV beers, but there is the Irish craft beer consumer has become a lot more in tune with quality over the last few years, and it's fantastic because it's kind of weeding out all the weaker beers and forcing breweries to put a lot more effort into it, you know, whereas it's not just a case of dumping as much hops into a beer and calling it a double IPA and away you go, you know. So the Irish market has just become fantastic at the minute for spotting quality and buying quality, which is great. It's weird. It's a weird landscape at the minute with all the pubs kind of semi-open and closed and stuff. So maybe when the pubs open back up, we'll see another resurgence of lower ABV beers on keg for those few points. But hopefully now in 2 weeks our pubs open up completely fully again, and we'll have a nice little run into Christmas. But until then, sure, no one knows.
Right. Yeah, and most of your stuff was always 2 pubs, was it? Cans or were you mainly distribution retail?
Yeah. Well, for up until 2019, we were kind of 50-50. We are kind of exporting to about 11 different countries outside of Ireland as well. So there was a good mix between can and keg, but obviously then it was 100% can for 18 months. And now it's opening back up again. We've started seeing a bit of a resurgence in kegs again in Ireland, which is great. So we use a company called Four Corners for our distribution in Ireland. And, you know, they've put in their first big order for kegs this month for the first time in, I don't know, 19 months or something like that, or 20 months. So, hopefully we'll get back to being 50-50 can and keg again. We'll see. Kegging's a lot, from a production perspective, kegging is a lot easier than canning. So, you know, I'd sell everything in keg and nothing in can if we could do that, because it's much less work.
And how is it?
Where do we have to sing about that? I prefer as well kegging.
And
yeah, for us it's we moved the brewery just in the beginning of the pandemic in December 2019. No.
Yeah.
See. We just moved in another place, and we were waiting all our the new brew house fermenters. So we received this in March 2020.
Wow.
Just in the moment of dead.
Shit.
And we, for many months, we have to start the brewery by ourselves because the people from APA from America, they can't come. So we have to do everything by ourselves. And we started, like you say, like 15 months, just with cans, no keg. And we really don't work with supermarkets and that kind of places. So we had difficult months, but right now we are like you, more or less 15 cans and kegs, who is very nice. I hope we are increasing the kegs.
Yeah.
Here, I'm just going to tell you, Taras from Octo Brewery in Cyprus has a question, so I'm going to actually bring him up and see if he'll come and join us and join in. How to do that? He's disappeared. This thing has disappeared. This was his question. Let me find him and bring him up. There he goes. He was asking about grape wines. You mentioned grapes a while ago.
Yeah, hello. Do you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can. There you go.
Yes.
Let me turn this one off and bring you up here. So, Taras, you're in Cyprus.
Yes, we are in Cyprus. We are a microbrewery from Cyprus. And nice to hear you guys. Nice to see you guys. If you plan to visit Cyprus, you are welcome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What I write your question about your uniqueness. Do you find your unique beer for your market, for your customer? We start also, of course, from lager, from Weiss, from IPA. But then we touch the grape ale. We start to make beer with our Xenisterid juice. And we make collaboration with the Germany. We start to export to the Germany. And
Wow.
we feel it like a good potential to make collaboration with a country who don't have grape and make together some beers which can produce in Cyprus and send it all around the world.
Cool.
And we are looking for some also possibility to brew with somebody some kind of beer which better produce out of Cyprus, who need more malt, for example. For us, we deliver all malt in Cyprus, and it's expensive. So it's better to deliver a collaboration beer, which we can produce in a country which have cheap malt next to brewery.
Yeah.
If somebody has some experience like this,
Yeah, well, I don't think we've never brewed a grape ale before. I suppose, given the fact that it's Ireland, we don't have much experience in grapes. We don't have the climate, although we do have good malt, which is always good. But yeah, the closest we've got to brewing a grape ale was brewing a Brett beer with a lot of white wine grapes.
yeah.
But that was it. It was basically dry hop with grapes, you know. But other than that, no, we've never had any experience of using grapes in a beer, really, or grape ale.
It's Kevin, you're right. You have very good malt in Ireland, so
Yeah.
it's one of the
But it's
possibility.
And it's
But
very
it's
cheap.
not cheap. It's not cheap. in Spain, no. we are just trying to talk with someone in Ireland to see if we can buy our pale ale there.
I'll send you some. I'll send you some contacts, Javier. For some, I'll
Nice.
send you some contacts from some Irish guys.
Yeah, because it's true that for the base malt, the pale ale in Ireland, I like very much. We have tried. I can't remember the brand, but we tried once, and I like very much.
Excellent. I'll send you some contacts today of people to talk to in Ireland for malt.
Okay, Kjetil, can you hear us? Yeah, I see your message. Can you?
I can hear you, but it seems like my camera doesn't cooperate. I don't know why.
Okay, man.
So, anyways, as for Cyprus, I mean, I have a brewery on the island of Crete, and we get excellent malts from Vergina, the north of Greece. They don't have many specialty malts, but they have like 5 or 6 different base malts. And it's cheap. The price point is really good.
We use it this malt. Yes, yes. Kjetil, we use Virginia also. It's not bad, and very close to us. The closest malt to Cyprus.
That keeps the shipping cost lower, of course.
Yeah, I guess being off on islands in the middle of the Mediterranean, it's not going to be cheap.
It's not going to be cheap.
Oh.
But
No, you can live in paradise, constant sunshine, but you have to pay a little bit more for your malt. So I don't know which one is, to weigh up your options really.
Well, the prices from Virginia is really competitive. So unless the shipping cost is not too high, then it's really a good malt variety to use. I can assure you.
So you've been, you've got a complicated story. So you started off in Norway, what, 2004 was it?
2002. Then I started the first modern craft brewery in Norway. Then we went into sake brewing. I was the first to brew sake commercially in Europe. And a few years later, we decided, me and my wife, to leave the brewery. As you become larger, it becomes more difficult to be a group of owners and to agree on the path you want to follow. And we bought a vineyard on the island of Crete. We ended up brewing again there also. And now I'm the brewmaster of Axiom in Czech Republic, where I am right now. So I do different things.
And is Solo, I mean, looking at the two, Solo is like that's very local, is it?
Not really.
All right.
We are focused on the island of Crete, but we do have distribution to the rest of the country also. But we have to remember that the craft beer culture is very young in Greece. So it's not a huge market, but it's developing, and we believe it's going to be better. This weekend, our guys are up in Thessaloniki. There's a beer festival there. So we're pretty much everywhere, but you have to remember that the craft beer market is quite small.
Right. And is
the thing we are doing, which makes us a bit different from the other breweries in Greece, is the fact that we brew in small batches. We package just in time, and we have refrigerated warehouse. So typically, when you drink one of our beers in Greece, it's been inside the bottle or keg less than 2 or 3 weeks.
Nice.
And we are spoiling our customers. So now they start to complain if a product has been inside the package for more than 4 weeks when they receive it. So for that reason, we think that we have the best beers, the best products in the country, because we are so focused on process, packaging, avoid oxidation, and freshness, and refrigeration.
right? And then with Axiom, how do you split your what beers you're making between the two?
Well, when it's allowed to travel, I mean, in times without lockdowns and so on, typically 10 days per month in Czech Republic, and the remaining time in Crete.
All right. But how do you decide what beers you're going to do for the Czech? And like, is it based on the culture of the?
Well, in my own brewery, it's very simple because I can decide myself as it's my brewery. Of course, I don't do it myself. I discuss with the other guys, and especially with my assistant brewer, and take the decisions on what to brew. In Axiom, I'm an employee, and I brew what they think the market wants. And I'm a conservative guy, relatively. So here I brew all sorts of shit with lactose and all sorts of fruit concentrate and NIPAs with almost zero bitterness, stupid things. But the market loves it, and I'm professional, and I can brew anything, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. if people wants to drink this, we have to brew this.
Yeah, and these days it seems like people want beer to taste like a cocktail.
Yeah.
See, it's like a juice and like a perfume.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally right.
Yeah, I had some recently. I had, and basically it was a smoothie. It was a fruited sour, and it was just a smoothie. It had no taste of beer at all in it.
Yeah, we've done a couple of them.
I wanna ask you about what you were talking before about the distribution, and I'm quite romantic, and for me the craft beer is something local. So if I can sell my beer around my home, for me it's better than sending 100 kilometers away.
Okay.
I know that we can't live only with the people around, but I think because of the delicadeza, I don't know, our beer is delicate, so we have to take care. And what you were saying, we also have in the brewery, we have a cold chamber. Everything who is been in the bottle, in the can, in the keg is in 5 degrees, and we try to sell to put it direct in the final customer. I think it's the best way to do it, but what do you think? Because there's many people who thinks it's better going in other countries and selling as much as you can. For me, it's quite incongruente.
When I was in Nogne Norwegian brewery I started, we exported a lot. In fact, years the export markets were more important than the domestic market for us, and we exported to like 45 different countries. And I traveled extensively to North and South America, to Asia, to Australia, everywhere, and it was a lot of fun. But I realized that the quality of the beer, I mean, beer doesn't travel very well, with the exception of an imperial stout, of course. But most beers do not travel very well. And if I travel and I come to a craft beer bar somewhere, I always go for first the local beer, and number two, the national beer. I avoid the imported beer because beers do not travel well.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. It's kind of different in Ireland because while the craft beer scene is fantastic in Ireland, the people who drink craft beer, the Irish craft beer drinkers, are unbelievable. But it's only a country of 5 million people. You know, there's cities in Europe which are bigger than the whole population of Ireland. So for us, export is key. We have to export because we're kind of our laws in Ireland are kind of a bit draconian. That we're not allowed to have tap rooms. We're not allowed to have our own bars within the brewery. So most of the breweries in Ireland are just production breweries. And you're all fighting for the same shelf space and fighting for the same taps. So for us, export is huge. But we have the way we work in export is that when we package our beers, they head out to the various countries within a few days of packaging. And we know our distributor in Spain or a distributor in Holland or a distributor in Sweden, when they receive the beer, it's less than 2 weeks old, and they're selling it fresh as well, because there's no point in us or any brewery spending half the money to brew a beer on hops if the beer doesn't get sold for 6 months and all the hops have faded. So we make a big push. Again, in Ireland, our cold rooms only use 7 months of the year because the other 5 months of the year it's actually colder outside than it is in our cold room. But we make a big push to get our beers out fresh and making sure that whoever's spending their money on our beers, wherever they are in Europe, are getting the best product possible. I don't think many breweries in Ireland could survive solely on just selling beer in Ireland because it's such a small population, and it's only maybe 4% of the adult population drink craft beer, or less than that probably. So it's a really small market to play to. So if you want to be sustainable, you have to export, and about 75% of what we produce is exported outside of Ireland. That's probably what we produce under our own brands anyway. Yeah.
So you're mentioning European countries mostly, and that gives you quite a bit of control there, Kevin.
Yeah.
Because it's quite near. Okay, we at from Solo in Greece, we occasionally send some beer to Cyprus actually, but the other export country for us is Australia.
Wow.
And okay, so it's a guy there who takes cheese and things which require refrigeration, so it's refrigerated, but still it takes away all our control of how the product is when it reaches its final consumer, and that makes me very uncomfortable.
Of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd be the same. We'd be the same. Ireland, like from Ireland, I know. Well, this whole Brexit shit show has kind of kicked us in the ass a little bit. But normally, shipping in Ireland anywhere in Europe is maybe 5 days, and it was great from when it leaves our brewery to when it hits the cold room or a distributor. So we could stand behind our beers knowing that they'll always be fresh. We've never stuck a beer in a container to go on a ship. So I don't know how I'd feel about that. It'd be quite stressful, I imagine.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I know, Barrett, you mentioned that as well, that you're like trying to control the beer temperatures down in Cyprus is quite difficult. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Guys, I have one question. How you fighting with the high temperature, especially in Spain and in Greece? We can't manage it. We have to working only with the customer who have fridge, or we start to make system with big fridge and our barrels inside, and we tap straight from the fridge. You have some experience with beer at 40 degrees outside.
It is a challenge. Of course. It is a challenge. And usually, I guess a salesperson or a manager of a company would appreciate big orders and to sell a lot, because that's cash and the business is working well. But for our case in Crete, we do the opposite way around. When we get a big order from a distributor or from a bar, then we try to persuade them into reducing the order and rather to order twice a week or twice a week instead of ordering twice a month. Because then if they don't have refrigeration, at least the beer is kept in warm conditions for only a couple of days.
Yeah. Here we are doing just the same thing, because many people has refrigeration even in distribution or bars. They have a small refrigerated chamber, but when people don't have something like this, we are doing the same thing. I tell him, this week I send you 6 barrels, next week 6 again. Better than sending 30 barrels in just once, and he will take a month or 2 months with the barrels in 13 degrees who is not working.
Yeah, I suppose that there's nothing worse than, that you produced a good beer, but knowing that by the time someone's drinking it, they're not really knowing what, they're getting a bad impression of you because of someone else's laxness.
Yeah, this is the biggest problem, that we take care about our beers, and once you put out your hand, you don't know what the others will do. But we have no choice.
True. I'd like to comment that I find it ironic and interesting that if you go to Scandinavia, where it's pretty cool most of the year, brewers do not have refrigeration as for storage area at all. And the beers are very often not fantastic because they've been sitting in a 22-degree normal room temperature room for months. But if you go to certain areas where it's hot, the whole year through, like Vietnam or Singapore, then you realize that the beers are great. They're in fantastic condition because they're refrigerated all the time. And it's ironic, isn't it? In the countries where it's where it's more challenging to keep the beers in good condition is the places where they are actually able to do it. And in the cold climate countries, people get too relaxed and they don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose, like you said, it's
Ironic.
just a matter of being aware of it. If it's generally cold, you think it's cold all the time, and you just don't really. You're more worried about warming things up. So sorry, I just let you know. I opened one of yours, Javier. It's a X2R IPA. That's the one.
Which one?
This one.
It's you will tell me. I like very much.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. It's again, I'm not an expert on hops at all. Couldn't tell you what hops are in it, but it's a nice bitterness. It's not too bitter, but it's got a nice bitterness to it.
Yeah, it's quite
And
bitter, and it's malty as well.
Yeah, and it's got a nice body. That's
I was so surprised when I looked at these cans from Brew and Roll, where I see that I've used 95 and 80, and the other one is 92. These days, the world is moving in the other direction, and it's like IPAs are getting less and less bitter, and these three are like classic. Conservative in bitterness, and I was smiling when I saw it.
Yeah. I think as a consensus, especially with brewers, we need to bring back bitterness.
This is what I like. So sometimes we brew what we prefer, and other times we brew what we are supposed to do.
The most important thing in a beer is balance. And most beers are, in one way or another, quite sweet. And how do we balance it? Well, with bitterness. Okay, we can use roasted malts and stuff as well, but bitterness is really the key to balancing the body of a beer.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Nothing makes us happier than when we're brewing a beer like a West Coast and we get the cans off the line, we go home a couple of days later and crack open a West Coast and taste a bit of bitterness, because a lot of what we produce is New England IPAs, 20 IBUs or something, and you know, while they're fantastic beers, you do crave bitterness.
Yeah, the sweetness, like you said, a lot of them are just fruit juices now. It's I don't know if people like them. I suppose if it's better, they can have them, but they're not my style. What I've started finding a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, is lambics. I'm kind of got real interest in the lambics and the sours, the kind of complexities of those.
Yeah, Brett beers are my vice. I'm not a huge fan of kettle sours itself. I find them a bit one-dimensional. But you get a good wild beer with a good Brett beer, or like a Belgian, the Straffelhendrick Wild or something like that. That's my weak point.
Yeah, no, I've had one from Doc. They had a saison, a mixed fermentation saison, which I still can remember tasting.
Nice.
Brilliant. But yeah, Kjetil, you'd probably have a lot more that, because Norway seems to have retained a lot of the kind of the more farmhouse traditions as well. I mean, if you look at Kvike, so.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that being from Norway. I mean, Norway, looking at it from outside, seems to have retained a lot more of its kind of traditional farmhouse styles as well, or at least small farmhouse brewers. And I wonder if that kind of influences anything there. Is it a big?
This is a very small, local, non-commercial thing, limited to maybe a very few farms who has been doing it. So it's not really what can I say? It's not really a culture or something everybody relates to. It's something which maybe a neighborhood in a village relates to.
Okay.
It's very local, and the fact that this has been, what can I say, discovered the past few years has had an impact on the craft brewing industry. But if you go into a village or a fjord or a valley in Norway, it's really something which is extremely local. And the reason why it is like this has developed into this in Norway is because of the geography or topography, where you have valleys, fjords, and so on, where you could not travel to the neighboring valley because of the mountains and the climate, you know, with winters and everything. So these Kveik strains would be very, very local. They would be part of a village or one fjord or one valley. And a lot of people talk about Kveik as if it's one thing, but the only thing they have in common is that A, they ferment at high temperatures, and B, they can be dried and stored. Everything else about Kveik is totally random. The Kveik strains from one valley to the next, to the next, to the next, totally different. Some are clean, some are mixed cultures, some are fruity. Yeah, it's really very difficult to talk about Kveik as one thing because it's a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting that it came out. I was wondering, like, what we were saying earlier about is, you know, hazy IPAs dominating everything at the moment. But I was wondering, like, you know, you hear about Kveik, you hear about all that, whether, you know, whether they're going to kind of farmhouse techniques, lambics, sour, saisons are going to slowly gain more prominence.
About that kind of beers, we were talking before the kettle sours, and did you try the Philip sour from Lallemand?
Which?
I've tried twice or 3 times with that yeast, and I really like.
Yeah,
I think it's going on better than the kettle sour, the other one they had before.
yeah, we any of the sours that we make, the straight up sours, we don't kettle sour. We use the souring yeast. There's a yeast propagator, a lab in Ireland, who's produced his own strain of this wine yeast that's sours your beer. So creates a little bit of alcohol, ferments about 10 points, but it creates a lot of lactic acid. And then you repitch a secondary yeast on top of that, then whatever it is, New England yeast or, you know, USO5 or something to finish it off. So all of the sours that we make aren't actually kettle sours. They're soured by the yeast and then fermented out by a thing, which gives a nice, better, rounded kind of sourness to the beer rather than a kettle sour, which I find to be very one-dimensional. So yeah, we've done it. We've used that yeast maybe 10 times, I think, overall for different beers, and it's really good, really good. It only sours to about a pH of about 3.5 as well, so it's not too sour. So it's kind of a bit more accessible for everybody else.
Yeah.
So the question initially was about the what is it called, sour pitch from Dalmont? No,
from Lamaland, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I've tried it once and I didn't find it to be very fast. It was very slow. What we are using in Axiom and in Solo is actually a very simple thing. We take Pilsner malt or pale ale malt. We put them in women's stockings or pantyhoses because it's very thin fabric. And we toss it into hot wort at 48 degrees Celsius. We flush it with CO2 to make it anaerobic, and the morning after we have 3.4 pH. That is made. This is not. It works very well, and it is of course multi-strain lactobacillus. It's not a monostrain. Another thing I've done, which is a little bit more unpredictable, but which works really well, is also to focus on 48 degrees and take a bottle of Driefontein or Cantillon or something and chug it in. You only need one bottle for 20 hectoliters. Works beautifully. But the good thing, you have to be high in temperature, so you kill the Brettanomyces, but the Lactobacillus is working at full speed.
Excellent.
Okay, that's a new one. I haven't heard those techniques before.
This is a good way to get the multi-strain Lactobacillus infection. So you avoid the simple and monoculture approach to it.
Okay,
Excellent.
so there's a new tip to be trying. Go out and get some those tomorrow.
I might have to sacrifice one of my drinking bottles of Canty on for my next brew.
Sorry, 1 second. My dog just walked into the room. So yeah, listen, you've all been around a while. There was one question because Kevin, I heard you on the podcast there last week. You were on a podcast, and I wanted to ask what the others thought that you were giving out. Let's say a little bit anyway about Untappd. that it's changed. And I remember a few months ago we had someone on and we had a rant against Untappd as well. And I want to see if you think it's changing the whole beer thing, like you were saying about having to brew to the market and having to brew a new beer all the time.
Let me clarify that rant a little bit because it got taken out of context, I think. I wasn't complaining too much about Untappd as such, but Untappd, in fairness, has got us a lot of sales because outside of Ireland, if people don't know who we are, the first thing they're going to do is check Untappd or check this and it's great. What I was complaining about is the very small minority of people who now only drink beer once just so they can rate it on Untappd and then move on to the next beer, and it kind of ruins what beer should be. Beer should be accessible to everybody. You should find a beer that you like and drink it, But a lot of people seem to be more. Not a lot of people actually. A very small minority of craft beer drinkers seem to be more interested in receiving badges on Untappd and actually enjoying the beer that they're buying. And it's tough because like all the guys know here, it's damn hard to make a good beer. You know what I mean? And it's even harder to make a good business around it so you can get that beer out. And then for people just to discount your beer, just to drink it and give you a 3 or a 5 or whatever to give you just so they can get a badge, it's kind of a bit disconcerting, really, And that's 1%, less than 1% of Untappd users, I say. And the other 99% are just absolutely legend craft beer drinkers and who love your stuff and love drinking beer. But there is a small minority of people who literally drink beer just to get badges, and it really annoys me.
I think like there's a driving license. It should be an Untappd license. If you don't know what you are drinking and what you are saying, it's better closing your mouth. But as you say, there's people who prefer putting numbers and trying 1,000 beers per month, but they don't really know what they are saying in Untappd.
No, I agree.
And do you think
That's totally right, and I find it's very sad that people cannot have some calm and find a beer which they actually enjoy, and when they walk into a craft beer bar to actually recognize it and say, wow, now I know I'm in for a good experience, because the experience for these people is not about the comfort and enjoyment. It's like the new. It's like having a one-night stand every time you want to have sex, isn't it? And I find this parallel to a lot of people, how they work with social media. It's like, so you see people, they have a great dinner in a restaurant or perhaps with friends at home, and instead of sitting down and enjoying the company and enjoying the meal, they are so focused on taking photos of it and put it on whatever social media instead. So they are not present with their mind. They're not present with their enjoyment because their mind is somewhere else. And that's the same thing with these Untappd people as well. I think it's sad.
Yeah, and instead it's only a very small minority of people in it, but it nearly drives this need for producing new beers all the time. And, you know, as brewers, there's nothing better than, like, I've been brewing one beer for the last 9 years. It's not the same beer because it's changed a million times, but it's changed because we've tried to perfect that one beer constantly to make it better and make it the best we can make it. And you're always tinkering with the water chemistry, or you're tinkering with everything. And you don't get a chance to do that anymore because we're just churning out new beer after new beer after new beer. But I do, in Ireland especially, though, I do see a change happening. I think people are there's a bit of fatigue for new beers. And I think, you know, maybe next year, the year after, we'll start seeing a bit more of a shift back towards core range beers for breweries, which should be glorious because, you know, like, as a brewer and a brewery owner, you know, you spend so long trying to learn your craft. You learn that in specific beers that it's a little bit soul destroying when you're just churning out new beer after new beer after new beer every week.
Yeah. It's I think just the same thing. It's too sad that we have a good beer. You try to do it the best way, and if you think you can go better, you will change something just to make it better.
Yeah.
And you're doing this, but people has tried it once and they don't want to try it twice.
Yeah.
They want another one, different one. And it's mal.
Yeah, and have you seen more of that? Because I see that, like, I suppose, like, if you go back, you know, people like the Heinekens, the Carlsbergs, Guinnesses, like, their brewery was built around one beer and one brand that people would drink. And okay, we can argue about what the quality of that became, but now it's more like, you know, people won't drink that again. So breweries have to kind of come up with a different brand that's the brewery that you just...
Yeah, I think it's shifted. Like you were saying, the Heineken, the beer is the brand. And with Guinness, the beer is a brand. With us now, I think the brand is the beer.
Yeah.
And same thing, but it's just flipped around on the side, you know. So we hope when people see third barrel beers, they, regardless of whether they drank it before, or they drank that beer before, they'll know that I've had other third barrel beers, so the quality must be good. Whereas, you know, when you look at the big guys, it's just based on their individual beer. Everything has to taste the same. You know, and I suppose that's where the kind of whole craft beer revolution came from, wasn't it? It's that the beers don't have to taste the same every time. They can taste better. You know, they can constantly evolve with what the market is. So, but yeah, I think for craft breweries, I think the brand is the beer as such.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that you're going to look for, if people aren't drinking your beer at second time, then you have to produce a new beer. You at least have to have kind of satisfy them the first time round that they're going to go and look from you again.
Exactly. Yeah.
When I started brewing almost 20 years ago, it was all about being creative and to allow your inspiration and creativity to be the tool to make new beers. And if I didn't like a beer, then I didn't want to brew it. I mean, if I brewed what I liked, and I brewed what I was proud of. And these days, and the last, maybe the last 5 years, but also the last 10 years, people have used Rate Beer and now Untappd as the tool. The brewers have used it as a tool to change direction of the beers. It's not about what you're proud of. It's not about what you want to do. It's not about your creativity, which comes from inside you, but it's about analyzing the ratings on Untappd, and previously it was Rate Beer a while ago. And this is not, is it? This is not about the art. The art part of brewing is then removed, and it's all about financial together with technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody seems to agree on that.
Yeah.
Boys, I have to leave. I have to take care of my kids.
Okay, I suppose we'll allow you to do that.
So nice to meet you. And
You too.
I will appreciate if you can send me when you try the beers what you think about them.
Definitely, and I'll email you this afternoon, Javier, with some details of some good Irish malt.
Very
Thank
nice.
you so
Very
much,
nice
Kevin.
to spend time with you, Javier, and enjoying your barley wine at the moment. It's fantastic.
Boom.
Thank you so much. Well,
Okay.
bye.
Thanks, Javier. Thanks a million for joining.
Thanks, Javier.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.
I think we're losing. Yeah. Okay, he's got. So yeah, so I don't know. How the rest of you, do you have any topics you want to mention that we didn't? Kjetil, what do you see as the difference? Like, just looking again, as I was looking briefly through the Czech scene, there seems to be an awful lot of brewers there, and they're all, again, pilsners and that, but they seem to be doing a lot of trying to pretend, we have a long history.
So yeah, the Czech beer scene is very conservative, based on their traditions, because after all, they do have proud traditions, but it's loosening up. It's becoming more and more. There are quite a number of really good craft breweries in this country now. But the funny thing here is that you have a lot of conservative people who are actively fighting the craft beer scene. You have people who go on social media and say, don't drink IPA because if you're drinking an IPA, you're not loyal to your tradition and proud Czech brewing traditions of pilsners or lagers. So it's really a culture where you have confrontations, and that's kind of strange. We here at Axiom, we actually do both. We do double decoction lagers as well as all the new shit we do. So yes, we do everything.
That's great. I suppose, given we're in Ireland, where I suppose the only beer culture we had was Diageo. Like up until 100 years ago, there was, I don't know how many breweries in Ireland, and then Diageo took them over, closed them down, or Guinness took them over and closed them down, should I say? So we don't have that locality when it comes to beer. Everything was Guinness. So when the craft beer not revolution, actually that's a strong word, but when the craft beer scene kind of first kicked off in Ireland, I think a lot more people were accepting of it. And I can see where they're coming from in the Czech Republic. If you're saying now, people are thinking, traditional breweries are dying out because of IPA, stuff like that. I can see why they might be a bit protective over it.
Well, I think breweries are dying because of the competition from the craft beer scene, because it's very small. I think this has no foundation in the real, scene. It's more like an emotional thing only.
Wow.
Yeah. What I've learned here during my 2.5 years in this brewery has been a lot with regards to brewing decoction lagers. Decoction is so cool, and nobody does it.
No.
No.
The brew house we bought was actually bought from the Czech Republic. It was an old VPS brew house where the guy who used it previously just made pilsners, 10 different types of pilsners. And same thing, full decoction, where he'd pull off 20% of the mash grain thing into the kettle, boil it, send it back to raise the temperature, and constantly do that. And I think he'd done about 4 or 5 steps in his mash before we sent everything before we laughtered and sent it to the boiler. So, it is a traditional style, but I think with grains being so well modified now, you don't really have to do it. Do you? The lager malt we use is so well modified, we don't need to step more decoction at all.
That's what I thought as well 2.5 years until 2.5 years ago, and I totally now disagree with you because the decoction process brings so much rich maltiness and caramel, caramel. I'm lost for word. English is not my first language.
It's flavor or aroma?
Flavor, aroma, character to the beer.
Character, yeah.
Without being sweet or cloying, it's just present in a neutral way. And you cannot get this. Some people say, we have melanoidine malt. Why do we need to do decoction mashing, sorry. But I totally disagree. Decoction mashing is fantastic. But yes, it takes a long time. Normal brew day here, it takes 7 hours. If we do double decoction, it takes 11. If we do triple decoction, it takes 12. Wow. Yes, it's a long brew day. But it's worth it.
I'll give it a go. We have a house pilsner that we brew under one of our brands, and it's a traditional-ish pilsner using Hallertau, Irish lager malt and pilsner malt plus a little bit of melanoidin. But normally we just straight up mash. There's no steps. It's literally just mash a 64 and away we go. But maybe in the next lager brew, we'll give it a go and we can do a side-by-side tasting.
Do you have equipment to do so you can do decoction mashing?
Yeah, our whole brewery, as I was saying, it's a VPS. It's an old Russian brew, but it used to be from the Czech Republic where we bought it, and it was built for. So yeah, we can pull everything off to the kettle and use the kettle to heat it up to push back into the mash to raise the temperature. So
amazing! You should give it a go one day.
Yeah, I think we do. I'd love to do it side by side because we brew this beer every kind of second week. So it's great to do it side by side.
I need to warn you. If you do this, then there is no going back. You will never
I've just added weeks of labour onto our annual production. Then
there's all your profits gone for the year.
What profits? What profits? We're in craft beer. There's no profits in craft beer.
Well, all your imaginary profits, all those figures that you showed the accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of those techniques that, I mean, I wonder, brewing has become very, it's scientific, it's all of this, but there's an awful lot of those techniques that are still out there that people just, that lived on in the farmhouse. And I mean, I remember we had a thing with Lars Garshel a couple of months ago on, Lithuanian beers, and the farmhouse techniques they're quite unusual, but I wonder whether there's any place for them, like if they add that amount of time.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing about beer. Beer's being spawned from tradition. It's been brewed for, commercially for hundreds of years, and we won't even go back to the Chinese who first brewed it 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. I think everything is brewed from tradition, and some of especially the farmhouse side of things, they've been brewing it that way for so long. Why change? Some of the techniques probably could be modernized, or some of them might be irrelevant. But this is it's more tradition than anything else. And I think if it wasn't for tradition, especially in beer, there'd be no beer industry. It's built on tradition. Same way as some of the processes we use, like we talk about lauter and vorloff and mash tun and stuff like that. Like these are old English words that have no relevance in actual brewing, but they carry through from the tradition that it is. So, while things can be modernized in the brewing, and things have been modernized in the brewing industry. It's nice to still have a bit of tradition come through in it as well.
Yeah. No, I wonder though whether you could see that there's maybe it would just be a gimmick to have a lot of those techniques, made with a particular technique, and it's maybe then just a gimmick that someone's using rather than adding anything. But it sounds like in this case it does add.
Yeah, but that's it. It does add. Well, I'll hopefully find out in a couple of weeks. But if you talk about Guinness, you talk about gimmicks in the beer industry, like this 2-part pour for Guinness, that's a gimmick. That beer that's nothing on the final pint of beer. Whereas these things might necessarily be gimmicks. You might be some of the processes. I'm not talking about the deck mash or the double decoction or anything like that, but maybe in the farmhouse thing, some of the techniques might be a little bit irrelevant, but it doesn't take away from the beer. So what's if it's tradition, let it go. I'd say hats off and keep it going, lads.
Yeah. Okay.
This reminds me of a good friend of mine, Danish brewmaster and lecturer Anders Kissmeyer, had a statement which he told me many years ago, and he said, just because someone does something to brew the beer, has a technique or tradition which you don't recognize and which goes against the grain, don't have a mindset that there are dogmas about that this is how you make beer and this is not the good way to make beer. If someone makes good beer one way or another, with one tradition or one unique ingredient or technique, respect it, because there are hundreds of ways to make good beer and there are no dogmas.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a great sentiment to finish on, really, isn't it? Listen, I don't, unless I've missed something that you particularly want to raise, I want to thank you both for taking part.
No
I know
problem.
everybody got bits of beers, and other people will be getting them on Monday and things like that. But so we never really got into the specifics of each beer. But I think it was a good chat, though.
No, what I must say though, that we tasted all 3 Axiom beers that were sent over. They were fantastic. The oatmeal stout, delightful.
It's been a pleasure to be with you guys, and I haven't had time to open the third barrel beers yet, but I look forward to it so much.
Excellent. So drop me a message and let me know what you think.
I will, certainly.
All right, guys. Listen, thanks a million. Just to let you know, next week we have 2 brewers. We have we have Kurish from Latvia and Nova Runda from Croatia. So it should be interesting to see the comparison between the 2 of those. I don't know much about Kurish, though I have a little bit of knowledge about Nova Runda, but hopefully it'll be as interesting as this and as entertaining. So I'll just play a little video that'll show you how it went, and want to say thanks again to everybody. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let me play this up here.